I'm curious, what was the inspiration for you to sit down and put pen to paper and the end result, 2 books and now one on the way?
Well, actually, I started thinking about, the possibility of doing a book when I was in high school because I fell in love with poetry in the 8th grade. I've been writing since 2nd grade. I started out writing one-act plays and just a few short little poems and things. In 8th grade, my English teacher introduced us to poetry, and I fell in love with Emily Dickinson's words. I really did. I fell in love. I thought that she never received the notoriety she deserved when she was alive just because of the life she led. But reading her words, I realized even though she cut herself out from the world, she was still speaking through her poetry.
Sure.
That was her freedom of speech. And so in college, I continued to write. I kept everything. And I actually saw, are you familiar with the movie The Secret Life of the Bees? Queen Latifah and Dakota Fanning?
I did not see it, but I am familiar with it, yes.
The writer of the book, Sue Monk Kidd, is actually from Sylvester.
Oh, really?
And when I went into the library and they had this big display about her book, and then when the movie was actually, we went to a movie, they had an even bigger display and they talked about it. And to me, that made writing a book seem tangible because before that, I never knew anyone from my town, being as small it was, to actually ever write a book. And that got me to thinking that even though I was part of this small community, I could do something greater with my words than simply keep them in a notebook to myself.
Sure.
And that got me to thinking about publishing a book. And when I was teaching in Atlanta, my 7th grade class fell in love with poetry through me. And they, every day, have you written your book yet? Have you written your book yet? And so it was my 3rd block class. They really pushed me to go ahead and put it together and write a book. And after I wrote the first one, the second one was already in my mind.
Okay.
And before I finished, book 2, book 3 is already in my head, along with a few other books I would like to write.
What are the distinguishing factors or variables with the first book and the second book? And you have them, the first 2 with us.
Yes.
If you can kind of show them. And
this is actually, that's book 1.
This is Silent Tears.
Silent Tears, yes, that's book 1. And it's actually part of the 3-book series. When I first wrote Silent Tears, I did not know there would be 3 books, but I knew book 2 was coming.
Okay.
And then I went on and I did the second book,
okay.
Wet Whispers.
Wet Whispers, okay.
And each book is part of the series, but it's something that I want to, that's in my spirit, that I feel needs to be birthed out. Book 1 was about not pretending anymore. I found myself in my own life sort of pretending to be happy, pretending to be okay with the way my life was going, to simply stay in this small community of Sylvester, and do what my parents did, do what their parents did, get a job, raise a family, and just be okay with the simple life. But I really wasn't happy with that. And I had to actually go through the phases of examining my life and deciding what was not working for me.
Sure.
Things that just weren't working, regardless of what they were. I made the bold decision to take that part out of my life and quit doing things to make other people happy, that my happiness had to come first. And that's what the first book is about, Silent Tears. It's about really examining your life and making necessary changes.
Excellent.
Put your own happiness first.
Well, before you tell us about Wet Whispers, let me comment on what you just said about Silent Tears. And I think so many of us, and just life can be challenging on most days. And many days it's absolutely wonderful, and it's how we approach it and how we deal with it. But during those challenging times, I think those are then opportunities that we can sometimes miss that as an opportunity to do just what you said. Figure out what our state is, where we want to be. If we're not pleased or happy with our conditions, what are the next moves, or what are the moves that we then need to make? And again, it's knowing that I need to do something, but it's the how. What approach do I need to take? And as you just said, it was just as simple as writing your thoughts down. You then, of course, have the talent or the gift of writing poetry. But again, just finding some means of communicating to ourselves in the form of therapy to try to figure out what our path or what our next destination should be. So I thank you for sharing that, because some of us get so caught up in and we stay in that moment, and it can be all-consuming and very overwhelming at times.
Yes, it really can, and that was the thing about it. And I actually found myself just, writing it down, just to make that actual list. And that's what I tell people. I say, you might not, feel like you can write poetry, and I didn't write, completely just poems to take myself out of that, but it's really about holding that mirror up to your face.
Sure.
And that is what I want to do with the readers. I want you to read this poem and really internalize it within yourself and take that hard look in the mirror and be honest.
Very good, very good. And then Wet Whispers.
Yes. Book 2 is about listening and trusting your own inner voice. God gave everyone a unique voice for a reason. We might have similarities, but we're individuals. And you have to learn to trust your inner voice. Don't let others speak for you. Don't let others tell you how to feel. And don't even do that to yourself. There are times when there are things that we want to say and we'll mute ourselves. No, I'm not going to say that. She might get mad.
Sure.
He might not want to be my friend. I might lose my job. At some point, you have to quit, just walking through life on mute. You have to, at some point, take that remote and turn the volume all the way up and just let your inner voice be heard, that emotional inner voice. Just say it, because the thing about it and I said this in the book, I can't guarantee that if you start to speak up for yourself and your true feelings, that you will find this happily ever after.
Sure.
But what I can guarantee is that if you never speak up, you will never be happy.
I agree. And the truth, a lot of times, there's an expression, we've heard it all our lives, the truth will set you free.
Yes.
Not necessarily so, but the truth can also be very sobering, and there's some results that you then may not be prepared for, and it may, the end result may not be what you were looking for. And I understand where the free part comes into play, because you do have a release, but then there's sometimes the repercussions of that we weren't necessarily looking for.
Yeah, and that's one of the things I talk about in the book. And that expression, I think, the truth will set you free, is a little bit misunderstood by most people. It's not saying it's going to set you free to this happily ever after you have in your mind. It's about setting you free from this facade, from this faux you, this faux life that you've been living. It's about setting you free from the lie. And that's why I say it might not be popular, and it might not, be the next, big it thing as far as amongst all your friends, but it's setting you free from that lie.
Sure.
And, and lies are, I'm not just saying to say, oh, you have on red boots today. That's not the type of lie. I'm talking about those emotional lies that we keep to ourselves to keep this smoke screen going.
It is. And that smoke screen can be very suffocating, and I think because of that, and just what you said at the beginning, it takes a lot of courage to do all that you said.
Yes.
And again, it may not be the end result or the ideal result that you're looking for, but at the end, it's, do you have that peace of mind?
Yes.
And the ability to move forward and make better decisions in your life, and to play an active role in your life.
Yes.
That's key.
Yes, and and I can give you a direct example from my life. When I started school, my parents had very high expectations for what they wanted me to do. I, graduated from Albany State, a cum laude graduate, was accepted into grad school immediately after at a private institution in Atlanta. And I was sitting in my very last class in grad school, and I realized that I was not happy. I was doing what was expected. My parents always expected, me to do those things, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Sure.
Parents should have high expectations of their children, and they only did that because they felt like I could rise to the occasion. But I wasn't happy going through grad school for counseling psych. I realized that although it came very natural to me, it was somewhat easy to me, it was not what I was passionate about. I was not passionate about it. And so I had to take some time to really sort of figure out what I was passionate about. And I made many big life changes. I moved to Atlanta. I was still teaching, but I was still finding myself. And after I met, that is now my husband, and he asked me one day, he was like, I feel like you pretend to be happy a lot. He said that smile doesn't always seem genuine, and he was right. It wasn't always genuine, and I realized that I am very happy being a stay-at-home mom and writing my books. Right. That's completely fulfills me. It does. I never knew such joy until after I had my son and being able to give him that time and attention. And amongst some of my friends, it wasn't understood. I was the one that always excelled in school. I would get a job, and you know, whatever job I really wanted, I always ended up getting, because I had that fighter attitude within my spirit to just go after something, you know, with both guns blazing and never accepting no for an answer. Sure. And for me to say, I'm going to now live in Kentucky and raise a baby, to them was like jaw-dropping.
Sure.
And, you know, I had some that accepted, and it was like, well, if you're happy, we're happy for you. And others just still to this day keep asking, well, when are you going to go, you know, back to punching somebody's time clock? And I just have to explain to them that that is not where my heart is. My heart is in the company that I started, where I am able to just unleash what's in my heart, because I feel like my words, you know, are very, I don't know if important is the right way to say it, but I feel like my testimony of what the things that I've went through, the things that I've witnessed some of my friends go through, I feel like many other people would benefit from simply hearing that story and being able to just mesh with it and learn how to just sort of make positive changes. Anything negative that I've went through in my life, I don't want anyone else to go through. And I feel like if I tell my story of this is what I went through, this is how I felt in this moment, this is the road that I took to make changes. I'm not saying take the same road, but I'm saying, you know what, just be bold. Sure. It's your life. You only have one. Be bold for a moment and make those changes that you have to. It's okay to say you don't like something.